This story will teach you a lot. I call it A Man from Nowhere. Just sit back and learn from it. Clara Hale met him in the most unremarkable way possible, through a common thread on a literature forum, beneath a quote by Rilke. She had typed something about loneliness disguised as independence, and he had responded with a line from Letters to a Young Poet. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. His username was Sebastian_93. She almost didn't reply, but something about the timing, her second glass of wine, the heavy silence of her apartment, pushed her to type back. They talked about poetry, loneliness, and the absurdity of modern life. His responses were thoughtful, never rushed. He seemed to listen, even when they were just typing in a window. It was rare to feel seen that way, especially online, especially at her age. Clara had stopped hoping for romance after 35. She was now 38 and comfortably invisible, a web designer who worked from home, who read in cafes and ordered her groceries online. The world didn't demand much from her anymore, and she liked it that way. But Sebastian_93 made her laugh. And think. And blush, once or twice, when his compliments came through late at night. Soon they were emailing, then FaceTiming. He was striking. Not conventionally handsome, but captivating. Messy dark hair, expressive eyes. A smirk that felt both charming and ironic. He spoke with an accent that hinted at somewhere between the UK and South Africa, though he claimed to have lived a bit of everywhere. He was a freelance digital consultant, always traveling. Cities blurred behind him during their calls. Lisbon, Krakow, Amsterdam. He never stayed in one place long, but he always made time for her. She told herself it wasn't love. Not really. You couldn't fall in love with a man you'd never touched. But he made her feel wanted in a way no one had in years. And when he asked to meet in Paris, the city where people go to either fall in love or say goodbye, she said yes. Paris was rainy the day she arrived. The train from Charles de Gaulle was packed, the air sticky with the smell of wet coats and tired travelers. Clara's suitcase rattled behind her as she walked out onto the platform at Gare du Nord, scanning the crowd with trembling fingers. And then he was there, holding a bouquet of sunflowers, smiling like he had known her all his life. She expected awkwardness, stumbling, a disconnect between screen and skin. Instead, he pulled her into a quiet hug that seemed to stitch something inside her back together. They spent the next 2 weeks in a haze of cafes, bookstores, stolen kisses on bridges. He told her stories about his travels, about how he had no real roots. His parents had died young, no siblings, no ties. He was a citizen of nowhere, he said with a laugh. Clara didn't care. She didn't want a man with obligations. She wanted someone who saw her. And he did. When he proposed on the steps of Montmartre just before they flew to Lisbon, she said yes without hesitation. It was foolish, impulsive, but something in her whispered, "This is the chance you never thought you'd get." They married a week later in a civil ceremony. No guests, no photos, except the one she took on her phone, their hands laced together, his thumb brushing her wedding ring. For a time, everything was golden. They rented a flat in Lisbon's Alfama district. He worked strange hours, always in calls, always ducking out for meetings with clients. But he brought her pastries in the morning, left her handwritten notes tucked into books. She was happy, truly happy. He told her there were complications with his finances, tax delays from multiple countries, legal hoops he had to jump through. He asked to temporarily route some payments through her accounts. Just a formality, he said. He trusted her, and she trusted him. Of course she signed. The papers looked legitimate. She didn't even read them closely. It was 3 months after their wedding when he disappeared. She woke up to find the apartment eerily still. His phone sat on the table. His side of the closet was empty. Even the framed photo of them from Paris was gone from the wall. At first, she thought he'd been mugged, or hurt, or kidnapped. She called his phone. No answer. She called the police. They were polite but unhelpful. He's an adult. Maybe he left. She checked the bank accounts. They were empty. Her savings, her retirement fund, even the mortgage payment her parents had helped her with, gone. She called the bank. They told her the accounts had been accessed from outside the EU. Multiple transfers. Offshore. And the documents she signed? Power of attorney. He hadn't asked to use her account. He had taken control of everything. Clara unraveled in pieces. The first week, she didn't leave the apartment. Her body stopped recognizing hunger. Her heart thudded in strange rhythms. Sometimes she woke up and saw his shadow in the corner, smelled his cologne in the air. Phantom memories. She flew home to Chicago eventually. Her landlord back in Lisbon said the lease had been terminated online, prepaid through the end of the month. There was no forwarding address. At customs, they asked about her husband. She tried to give them his full name, but the officer looked confused. There's no record of that name. Not in their systems. Not in the passport database. She tried everything. Interpol. Private investigators. Online forums. It was as if he had never existed. Weeks turned into months. Clara's friends said kind things, brought her food. But they didn't understand. They thought it was a Tinder scam, a bad marriage, a mistake she'd regret and move on from. They didn't understand what it meant to have loved him, even if he had never been real, even if she had loved a ghost. One afternoon, deep in a Reddit thread about international fraud, Clara saw something that made her heart stop. A blurry photo. A man in a cafe in Buenos Aires, with a woman who looked young and happy. The man was labeled Edward Art, alias used in Argentina scam. But it was him. The same tilt of the head, the same hands, the smirk. She scrolled through comments. A few people mentioned other sightings. Names: Simon, Dio Luca. Always a new country, a new woman, a new lie. Clara stayed up all night cataloging them. She opened a spreadsheet, created a folder. She started to collect him, like pieces of a shattered mirror, try to see the full face beneath the mask. By the end of the year, she had found 8 women. 2 were willing to talk. 1 was in therapy. Another was pregnant when he disappeared. Clara felt her grief shift into something sharper. Not anger. Not revenge. Purpose. She wrote down everything. Filed reports. Sent anonymous tips to authorities. Nothing came of it yet, but she waited. Watched. Because men like him slip eventually. And when he did, she would be ready. Epilogue. 3 years later, Clara sat in a courtroom in The Hague, the sleeves of her blouse trembling with each heartbeat. They had caught him. A fluke, really. A security check at an airport. A fake passport flagged against a dormant Interpol alert. He had gone by Nicholas Bartum this time. He didn't look at her during the trial, but she looked at him. And for the first time, she didn't see the man she'd loved. She saw a performance. A man who wore women's dreams like disguises. When they asked her to speak, she did. Not with rage, not with tears, but with clarity. Because Clara Hale had been broken. And then she had rebuilt. Not from who she used to be, but into someone entirely new. Someone who no longer needed saving. Someone who had saved herself,